Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming along to today's Let's Go Zero webinar, Harness the Power of Football to Save the Planet. We're joined here today by absolutely brilliant or organisations, shall I say, who are collaborating on the Green Football's Great Save. We have Genevieve Margaret, who's the Director Entertainment and Culture at Count Us In, and Richard Holmes, who's the Director of Final Third. I'm really, really excited to tell you about this brilliant event that they are planning. So just before we do, just to introduce myself and my colleague who's on the call today, I'm Suzanne Gibbon, the Let's Go Zero Programme Coordinator, and I'm joined by Alison Lazenby, the Schools Programme Project Officer. And Alison will be chairing the Q&A session at the end. So please do drop questions into the Q&A box or the chat box, whichever is easiest for you guys to access. And we'll take questions at the end. There should be plenty of time. So just to quickly introduce Let's Go Zero to those of you who are new to us today, Let's Go Zero is a national campaign for all schools, colleges and nurseries across the UK to sign up to declare their intent and ambition to get to zero carbon, to become more sustainable within their school buildings, within their school activities, and to really call on the government for that extra support and funding and guidance that we need in order to get to the legislated net zero by 2050 target. There are now over 5,400 educational settings across the UK who have joined the campaign, adding their voice to show that this growing movement for change is here. And it's been absolutely amazing that we can leverage the power of your collective voice and talk to the Department for Education and work with them to support schools on this journey. So we not only work with the Department for Education, but we also work collaboratively with a whole host of organisations. There is Let's Go Zero as a campaign, is a coalition campaign backed by 19 other organisations, which you can see on the slide. But we also partner with various other organisations such as the National Education Nature Park, Climate Ambassadors and Sustainability Support for Education, all run by the Department for Education. And together we want to create support networks and guidance for schools. So we do this through our monthly newsletters by posting and signposting and guidance, offering competitions for schools to get involved with, offering webinars such as this one today, as well as lots of free resources, lesson plans, workshops, and our brilliant Climate Action Advisors network, who are all here to support schools across England with that one-to-one support and advice for free to help you on your climate action journey, whether you are just starting out and really don't know what steps you need to take in your school, or you're well on the way and want a bit more, have a bit more ambition and want to understand what the next step you can do. But that's enough from me. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Jen and Rich, who are all here to talk to you about Green Football's Great Save and this brilliant event.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's really lovely to be here. Thank you everyone for taking the time. My name is Genevieve, as Suzanne said. I'm a campaign director at Count Us In. Just very briefly, I'll talk a little bit about Count Us In just to set the scene, and then go into a bit of the context around Green Football and what we've done to date, and then pass over to Rich, who is going to talk much more about what we're actually doing within the school space this year as well. Then we've also got a couple of call to actions and ways for everyone to get involved, and time obviously for a Q&A so we can answer any questions that haven't been covered. Before I go there, Rich, do you want to go on? Rich, do you want to just introduce yourself as well? And then I'll get back into it.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I'm Rich, Director of Final Third, who support the sports industry on sustainability broadly, and the education industry as a kind of secondary step to that, with kind of club community organisations working around the country. My background's in football and education, so I worked in the football industry for 12 years. I was a school governor for 6 years and predominantly worked using football as a vehicle and a tool for education and behaviour change, which is what we're trying to achieve through this campaign. Within Green Football's Great Save, my role is supporting all of the football clubs across the UK, all the professional football clubs across the UK, to embed this campaign into their fan bases and into their communities and into the schools that they work with. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the campaign after Jen's given a bit more of an introduction as well.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, so just briefly to set, I suppose, a bit of context as to why we're even doing this campaign in the first place. Count Us In as a charity, we work through sport predominantly as a channel to reach the movable middle, as we call them. I think that's that great swathe of people in the middle of society. You might think of them as the persuadables or the silent majority. Really, probably people like you and me, all of us on this call. People who care about climate change, but don't necessarily quite know what to do, or don't feel that the actions that they're taking are really making much difference, and don't really feel part of a community of people who are kind of, as a groundswell, able to kind of show up in any meaningful way to say that this matters to them. I also think we're working now into a climate and a context where, you know, people are slightly distrustful of leadership, or of perhaps some of the sort of hierarchical and traditional organizations out there. And so we really believe that sport is a channel through which we can actually start to reach people where they're at, through the things in their lives that they love, talk to them about climate in a way that really resonates, and we can connect it back to the sport that they love as well, because we know that sport is actually quite existentially threatened by climate, you know, in this country, flooding, and other country wildfires. So it's a way, I think, to actually be able to get down to a level of people and talk about it in a way that actually makes sense for them. And help them to take action and feel empowered to do that, and show them actually through their football fan communities that we all do really care about this. And the other side to it, really, from our side of view, that we think is very important, is that we can flip that sort of that community groundswell of support and action, and show to leadership, to business, systemic leaders, that, you know, the majority of people in this country really, really do care. Look at all these football fans around the country taking a simple action, you know, during the Green Football Great Save campaign, and use that as a way to kind of say to them, look, the support is there. You need to be bold. When you go to the COPs, when you go to all these different places where the decisions are made and the important systemic sort of, you know, solutions are put into place, be bold, because you've actually got the public support behind you. So I won't go into that a few more details. We can absolutely come back to that in the Q&A in terms of our theory of change, but I thought it was just helpful perhaps to set the context to why we even do these campaigns in the first place. So I'm going to just share my screen, which, fingers crossed, will work. And bear with me a second. Hopefully, Rich, can you just let me know? Can you see the screen? I'm just going to go back to the start.
Yep. All good, Jen.
Perfect. So we'll talk a little bit now about Green Football's Great Save. I'll talk a little bit about sort of setting the scene and what we've done in previous years, just to give you a bit of context. And then, like I say, hand over to Rich to talk more about what we're going to be doing with schools this year and how we'd love to work with you all. So Green Football, this is actually going to be the fourth year we're going into. We had a pilot year during COP26, called COP 26, and then in previous years it's also been called Green Football Weekend. This year we've changed it to Green Football's Great Save, predominantly because it's no longer a weekend. As you can see, it's running from the 11th of March to the 2nd of April. And the Great Save element is because each year we do try to align around a theme, and this year's theme is all around kit, and I'll come back to that in a second. And as I say, we really see, you know, sport as a channel through which we can really reach and resonate with the movable middle, the quiet majority. So in this case, it's really about unleashing the power of football to tackle climate change and protect nature. It could be any sport, but obviously I think, you know, football resonates with just so many people in the UK, across the demographics across the nation. So it's the perfect vehicle. And we've got some good support, including from people like Gary Lineker. And again, we can talk a little bit more about ambassadors we've got for our schools programme in a bit. But, you know, we're very lucky to have people like Gary Lineker. This year, Juan Mata's come on board as well. We've got Matthew Flamini as a legendary Arsenal player as well. So some nice talent from both the men's and women's teams to sort of give the campaign a little bit of extra flavour. And what I'm also going to do now is show you a video, which just again brings some context to the whole campaign and how it played out last year.
Today is the launch of Green Football Weekend, a UK-wide campaign which aims to bring together millions of fans to represent their team in climate action.
We're going to try and bring the power of the football communities together to help save the planet.
If every UK football fan had one veggie meal a day, it would be the equivalent of taking 5.5 million pounds off the road, which is for the investment market.
I think it's a really good initiative, and I think lots of fans will want to get behind it.
And there are fans up and down the country who've been trying to score goals to win for their football clubs.
Let's have a quick look at the latest leaderboards. We all have a social responsibility because in reality we have a huge platform. It's Green Football Weekends. There's only right we're at the EFL's Green Club of the Year. Bristol City have committed to Race to Zero targets of cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030.
You don't have plastic inside? Because everything inside the paper.
Oh, pardon. False. Air control. That's true.
So I'm going to put this on here, and basically when Izzy cycles, it blends through the...
Winners of the 2024 Green Football Weekend Cup, Manchester United.
Brilliant. Hopefully that played out okay for most of you, and you gave you a bit of a sense of the breadth and depth of the campaign. Last year's theme was all around trying a veggie option. You know, we wanted people to consider when they're going to the game or at home. Usually we obviously turn to, you know, the standard sort of beef or meat pies, etc., etc. And this was all about getting people to think about alternatives to that. So perhaps it was about trying something different either at the game or at home. And this is just a kind of impact of the numbers that we had last year. So, you know, the campaign reached over 30 million. That's thanks in great part to our broadcast partners. We have Sky Sports and TNT Sports involved. And then we also have a myriad of partners and through the clubs. So we're able to reach, you know, a lot of people with our messages. And what we found from that is that, you know, 81% of fans want to do more. So we know from doing this campaign that people react positively to it because they want to see sports sort of showing up in this space. And equally, because we're showing up in that space, you know, clubs feel more confident in order to take action, and they also feel more confident in talking to their fans and their communities about the action that they're taking. It's helping to normalise that conversation because, you know, frankly, climate can sometimes be boxed off as something elsewhere, but climate is football, football is climate. The two are very much interlinked. We'll talk a little bit about the various sort of facets of the campaign as well. But, you know, alongside what we're asking clubs to do from a fan perspective, we ask them to consider trying new climate-friendly habits, and we gamify that through our leaderboard. So when they take action, they can score green goals for their favourite clubs. And you saw at the end there that Man United, for the second year running of the cup competition, they won our Green Football Cup, and over 20,000 green goals were scored. So that is people taking climate actions and registering them on our website, and that is something that we've also seen that schools and families get really involved with. And as I say, a lot of clubs get involved. We have last year over 115 clubs. I think it's going to be something similar this year, and that's across from Premier League all the way down to grassroots. And in fact, this year we have a much stronger grassroots campaign as well. So I think for our youngest fans' point of view, there'll be touch points in school, and there might also be touch points for them when they're playing in their local teams at the weekend. And it's inspired global change, which is probably a slightly overblown statement, but we do now have a similar campaign that's starting up in Brazil. It's because a Brazilian company organisation came to us. And actually this year we'll also have an Australian version of Green Football's Great Save playing out at the same time, thanks to the Australian Players Association who've been working with us to develop something. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of flavour as to kind of the impact we hope to have and sort of how big potentially this campaign can get each year, and how multifaceted it can be. So just going into now what we're looking to do in Green Football in 2025. The theme this year, as I said, is all around the Great Save. The idea is really thinking about what we can be doing within the sort of the textiles industry and the issues that we have there. So as the sort of top statement says, over 100,000 tons of sportswear can end up in landfill every year. And there's a lot of kit out there that's not with no chance of getting a game. We've been working closely with Loughborough University, who have a lot of information around not only the fashion industry's impact on climate, but then actually a subsection looking at really the sports kit industry. So we know that there's quite a big issue here, and it's a big scope 3 problem for lots of clubs. So we've really been thinking about how we turn this into actions for people. And we've really come down to there being 3 kind of key things that people can do. with kit that they've got, there's a lot of value in it. So we're saying to people, why not sell it? You know, don't just let it sit in the back of your wardrobe, or worse, put it in a bin. You know, it can be sold. You can make money from it. You can also reuse it. You know, it can be passed on to someone else in your club, in your community. You can pass it on through our donation partner, Salvation Army. There are plenty of ways to keep that kit in use and bring it into the community and recycle it. Passing it on to someone who needs it. You can also upcycle it. We're also talking about how we can repair clothes, and Rich will talk a little bit to that in a second about how we bring it out into the schools as well. So hopefully it's a really positive kind of action that we're trying to get off the back of this. We're sort of getting people to think about their clothing, think about what they can cherish, what they can pass on, and just don't let things end up in the back of the landfill net. Let's not let clothes just go to landfill, which obviously, as we know, contributes to climate, because when things break down, the gases that are given off are only contributing negatively to climate change. And I just wanted to also share briefly, just so you can see again how the schools piece fits in the context of Green Football's Great Save overall. What we'll be then doing this year is we've got fans, clubs, partners coming together to sell, donate and repair their pre-loved kit. We've got lots of fun activations happening in this space. As I say, we've got Salvation Army on board. So what we're doing with them is we're setting up donation points at clubs. People can bring their old kit along. Salvation Army will be taking that and reselling it through their stores. To launch that, we've got lots of players dropping kit off at Salvation Army shops next Wednesday, March 11th, when the campaign launches. Next Tuesday when the campaign launches. And they'll be saying on social media, I've, dropped this shirt off in my local Salvation Army. So people will be enticed to get down there, route through, find these sort of special shirts to buy at the sort of normal charity shop prices. We've also been working with clubs like Leeds and Plymouth and their players who've been engaging with us around sewing activations and learning how to sew. Clubs are going to be, as usual, they make lots of new sustainability commitments, and they use Green Football as a platform to announce those. We'll obviously again have our fans being able to take climate friendly actions to win the Green Football Club, and like I say, that's something that families and schools and young people really kind of get behind. We've got our schools programme, which we'll come to in a second. We've got our grassroots programme this year as well, which we've really sort of built out from previous years. So really looking at how at a grassroots level this can resonate as well, being very mindful that a lot of the grassroots sort of teams are run by volunteers, taking up sort of vital time on Saturday. So how can we make it really simple for people at all levels to get involved? We've got some great players, pundits and influencers coming on board. You'll hopefully see some brilliant upcycling of old kits from both players and fashion designers. Like I say, we have some player legends like Matthew Firmini involved, Juan Mata, and lots of players coming through as well, donating kits. We've got our broadcast partners, and we have lots of media happening. And finally, we are looking to work with political and business leaders. You probably saw Keir Starmer in that video. We are talking to his team again about how we might be able to get involved, but we're also working with local MPs and bringing them along to some of their local grassroots teams so they can understand really the issues that some of those teams are having, be it from flooding, and how from a sustainability point of view they're struggling. So we also use this as a way to drive key policy issues. And again, just to go back, I suppose, to the kind of why around sort of, why we think this particular topic is important. We think that we can help to prevent waste and reduce landfill, which in turn reduces carbon pollution. It's about building communities as well. Part of this is about helping fans save money, really thinking about the value of the kit that they've got and where they can make money from it. Increasing access to sport, so we can take some of the kits that we're getting, we can provide kits to groups in need. And we're also running a piece with the Rio Ferdinand Foundation and their young people to understand what are the challenges they have around accessing kit in the first place, particularly for young women and the issues they might have around accessing the right sort of kit. So we hope to be able to bring some stories to the fore from harder to reach communities who have needs that we might not necessarily have been able to, who haven't been able to use their voices and use our platform to get those messages across before. And, ultimately build a movement through this as well. And finally, just from me, just to say that this is who we're powered by. So again, it's the work that we do is it's all about bringing together a collaboration of different partners, big partners like Sky and TNT, smaller grassroots partners like Pledge Ball and Rich's company Final Third, and then groups like the Football Supporters Association as well. So it's this sort of big mishmash of companies that brings us all together to allow us to be as successful as we can be. I'll pause there, and Rich, should I pass over to you? I can do the slides for you if you want to just shout across when you need the slides changing.
Thanks, Jen. I'll channel my inner Chris Whitty and tell you when
Yes.
to move the slides on. Yeah, thank you. So I think I'll just kick off by saying Jen's mentioned about the Green Football Cup there, and also, you know, Manchester United won this 2 years in a row. Now, any football fans on the call might look at that and think, well, with the global reach that Man United have, despite where they are at the moment in the league, you know, that might be inevitable. But I'll caveat by saying that actually Manchester United won this 2 years in a row for one simple reason, and that was the work that they did with schools in their community. Schools really play an essential role in this campaign. And the cup itself is driven by fans, and I use that term fans extremely broadly to include students, young people, teachers, families, and kind of wider school communities who score goals for the football team that they support by taking really simple everyday climate actions or making pledges to do more to kind of support climate change and take climate action. And every time they do one of those things, whether it's as simple as a reusable bottle of walk to school, pledging to eat less meat, whatever it might be, there's a whole host of options. They score goals for their team, and ultimately that is what drives that league table. And a huge portion of that has been driven by the work that football clubs and their community teams do in local schools, and you know, your schools can get involved and support that as well. And also to say, to avoid any arguments, you don't have to choose a team as a school. Individual children can score goals for the team that they support as individuals, just to save any arguments or trouble on the playground that might emerge. So we want more schools to get involved. We'd love to see your schools taking part in this campaign, and I'll talk a little bit now about how they can do that. So the first element to this is the classroom itself. And what we've done is we've developed some really simple materials. You know, we know that the curriculum and your time in school is precious and extremely stretched already. So what we've done is developed workshops that can be delivered in, you know, a relatively short space of time. You know, you could devote an hour to this and still engage in the campaign and start to have some impact. So we've developed these resources that are all themed around football. And the whole point of this campaign is using football as this vehicle for education, for behaviour change, for attitude change. And I mean, my opinion is that there is no better tool in the world than football to do that. Like, football has so much influence over people and young people, and you know, your football club is part of your identity and has such influence over people. So the first element of this is classroom content, and we've developed resources for Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. As I say, relatively simplistic, nothing too onerous to kind of deliver in the classroom. A little bit of education about the topic of sports kit and the issues that arise from that, and helping children come to solutions around what can be done to tackle this issue. And that can then lead into that some schools like to do, if they want to develop this beyond a kind of small intervention session, is turn that into a social action project and actually get the children to creatively come up with solutions that they can implement within your school, within the wider school community, to bring this to life. So those toolkits, worksheets, workshops, slides, etc., are readily available, completely free to access. And that is kind of step one of engaging in the program. And just by doing that in and of itself, you as a teacher can score goals on behalf of your class. So there's ways to do that. Or you can get children to score additional goals themselves at home. So that's the first way to score goals. The second way is an interactive workshop, where what we wanted to do was bring sewing to life. And a huge reason that people throw sports kit, but also, you know, generally clothing and textiles away, is it might have a hole in it, and the skills gap that exists in learning how to sew seems to have been lost a little bit. It does feature, I believe, in some way in the national curriculum, but again, it's likely one of those areas that, you know, gets a little bit of attention for a short space of time and then we move on. And what we really wanted to do here was bring some role model, you know, football talent spin to the table that makes this a bit more memorable and a bit more exciting. And to do that, I had to teach myself how to sew, which was an interesting task in itself and not particularly successful, so that I could teach some professional footballers how to sew, which, as you can imagine, was even less successful, but never mind. So I went up to Leeds United Football Club a couple of weeks ago and worked with 3 of their first team players. used my YouTube sewing skills to embed and pass on to them and film some content here that actually gets these role model faces, and one in particular who has featured for England and is a fairly well-known player, features in that video, and almost give that bit of advice that really simplifies sewing, so that children can learn how to sew, something really simple that hopefully keeps that skill set in their mind, keeps it a bit more memorable, and kind of encourages them perhaps to take it up as a skill to develop and continue to learn, to prevent sports kit or any kind of fashion or textiles ending up in landfill, essentially. So that's the second area, and we'd love to see how that works in your schools. What we have got, although there's very limited supply of this, so I say this with a huge T's and C's may apply, we've got some Green Football's Great Save, our logo badges, that we're working with some organisations to help young people to actually sew these onto maybe their book bags, maybe a backpack, maybe a PE kit, whatever is acceptable within the school environment, and use this video to do that. And we've kind of broken it down into really simple steps, but we'd love to see that developed and taken further beyond my extremely limited sewing skills. But it's a good starting point and a fun way to bring this to life and try and bridge that skills gap with some kind of role model talent engaged. The next way that schools can engage in this campaign is ultimately a ginormous jumble sale. So this could be, and obviously our campaign is very much focused on sports kits. So we're looking at football tops, football boots, goalie gloves, shin pads, whatever it might be. But actually from a school's perspective, there's nothing stopping you expanding that out into PE kit and school uniform, and school uniform swap shops are obviously quite popular, and maybe something that many of you are already kind of engaging with. But bringing this to life in a way that brings that kit into school. This could be used as a swap shop. It could be used as a fundraiser for the school if you wanted to actually sell internally. And there's also a way whereby you can, if you are left over with heaps and heaps of additional clothes, we don't want to kind of create the risk of those clothes ending up in landfill. And as Jen said earlier, we're working with the Salvation Army. They've got a scheme which I believe is called Recycle with Michael. And by signing up to that scheme, they can take those excess clothes off you and deal with them via their retail stores, via their recycling outfit, etc. So bringing that jumble sale to life and kind of creating that circular economy and way to give clothing a second life. Can you not hear me? Have I gone? No, I think it's just you, Jen. I'll carry on. Jen, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Rich. I think maybe Jen's having problems.
I think it was my signal. Apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen again. Sorry. I think it's oh, can you still see the screen?
Yeah, all good.
Fine. Carry on.
Can you just move on to the next slide for me, Jen, please?
Yes, I can find the here we go. Yes, there we go.
No webinar is ever complete without a minor tech hiccup, so bear with us. Okay. And we've got some schools ambassadors that we're working with here as well through the Green Football's Great Sale campaign. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see Alexi Rojas, who is an Arsenal goalkeeper. He's a young lad. He's breaking out into the first team. I think he's probably third choice at the moment, but he's extremely passionate about this topic. He's recently played international football for Colombia, where he comes from, and he's put some videos together for the school's toolkit as well, which really engages children. Really passionate young man, very well spoken, and hugely committed to this campaign. And then Rebecca Thomas, who is actually a friend of mine who plays for Wolves Women. I like to say that I taught Beck everything she knows when I coached her at West Bromwich Albion many years ago, although I'd be completely lying. But Beck is also a campaign ambassador for us as well, and supporting the campaign from the women's game perspective. Next slide, Joe. So ultimately, I mentioned before about the Green Football Cup and how that comes to life. Young people, teachers can score goals. We want you guys to get involved as well. We want parents involved. We want everybody involved. Get the whole school community engaged. But we've got some prizes up for grabs that ultimately, by taking part in this campaign, there are individual prizes that if children, teachers, anybody goes home and does their own thing on the campaign, they can win prizes for themselves. But on the screen here, we've got some collective school prizes as well. So by taking part in this campaign, you can win an immersive experience at the Sky Up Studios, which is really quite exciting, and we can share some more detail on that. But really, they take this out on tour. They've got this, I think it's on a bus, but they've got a really immersive kind of engaging experience linked to sustainability, which is quite cool. And that's at Sky headquarters. We've got a virtual author visit from a good friend of mine, Dan Friedman. Dan is a best-selling children's author who wrote the Jamie Johnson series, which is about a young footballer, was also turned into a BBC TV show, very, very well known. Recently wrote another book for secondary schools, probably year 7, year 8, which is called Unstoppable, a book called 50 Ways into Football, and a book called I Am Lenny Brown, published by Puffin. So really successful author, and he'll do a virtual author visit to your school, Q&A with the children, talk about his experiences, his career, and having delivered one of those programs with Dan and taking him into schools before, I can vouch for how incredibly impactful they are with young people and how inspirational he is. We've also got a selection of books around football and climate that you can win courtesy of Usborne Books as well. So some pretty cool prizes for just engaging that are up for grabs by taking part in this. And then there's other prizes that individuals can win, like tickets, signed shirts, all kinds of cool stuff that's going on as well. So how you can get involved as a school, we've got some flyers that we can distribute that you can ideally digitally distribute and save on that paper and ink, but although sparingly you might want to put some up on display around the school or perhaps in a notice board. We would obviously never encourage you to print 7,000 of these and start posting them out to everybody, but we do have some flyers that you can share that gives this information. They'll have a QR code on them that directs straight to the platform, a URL that kind of explains how goals can be scored, how you can take part. You've got the in-school engagement, so the jumble sale, the sewing activation, the classroom worksheets that I spoke briefly about, and then think about how your school can do even more. Don't feel like you have to stop at what we've suggested. By all means, we love creativity. We love people to grab this and go and do their own thing and make it even bigger and better. So we'd love to hear about any of those stories too.
Brilliant. And that is the end. Let me stop sharing my screen there. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, I think that hopefully sums up kind of and brings it all together, what Green Football's Great Save is all about this year and how schools can get involved. We'd love to take any questions or comments from people.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much, Jen and Rich. This is absolutely fantastic, and just what a fantastic campaign to get involved in. And you've got so much stuff, activities and prizes as well for schools to get involved. So it's really, really exciting. I have one request for myself before I hand over to Alison for questions. Please, could you send me the flyer so I can attach it to the follow-up email that I send round to everyone who's attended and those who couldn't, because that would be great to share. But no, thank you so much. And it's amazing to hear you've gone global. I mean, Australia and Brazil, you've gone global in both ways as well.
Yes.
So fantastic. Yeah. I'll hand over to Alison now because I think there's some questions that have come through for your Q&A section.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation, super interesting. Someone's just written in the chat, are you about emailing round all the information? So this recording will be shared and Suzanne will attach the flyer along with any kind of link. So there'll be a link to your website. So some other questions have come through. The prizes, obviously everyone's interested about the prizes. How do you enter to win those? So is it you can win one from taking part, or do you have to be a school that has scored the most green goals for their club?
No, so for this it is just simply taking part. So if a school uses the QR code that they'll find on the packs and says, yeah, we delivered this resource in school, or we did a jumble sale or whatever, we'll take you by your word as well. We're not asking for evidence of these things, but by doing that, then they are entered into a prize draw, and we will just pull names out of a hat that way and award first, second, third. So we want to make it quite low bar for schools to be involved and make that prize available to everyone.
Great, thank you. And does it have to be a member of staff at the school who enters the school for a prize?
Yes, it will ask for school information. So it would be a member of staff of a school who would need to enter, as opposed to entering using your personal email, just so we can make sure it is attributed back to a school.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing to that question? So that the in-school stuff is member of staff led. However, if young people want to get involved, the reason we kind of say that's an at-home thing is naturally around kind of parental consent. So the flyer would be going home with the children. They can do loads more at home, but that is kind of the parents are signing them up and engaging as individuals, as a family, and that gets the parental consent on side. So that's where the prizes for individuals open up as well. I'm also going to really quickly add that I'm going to have to run and leave you in Jen's very capable hands because I've got to do the school run. So my apologies. More than happy for you to share my email address, guys, if there's anything. But I will leave you in Jen's capable hands.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rich.
So Jen, your sole question.
In the hot seat, yeah.
So this one also goes back to the portal of kind of how does it work with logging points. So if I'm a school teacher and I have a class, but there's different football teams within that class.
Yeah, so as a teacher logging on behalf of the class to say we did these things, you will only be able to choose one team, one football team. Now, I would suggest the teacher doesn't go too much into detail of the classroom about which. I assume most schools are affiliated to a football club just by virtue of being in the same location as them. As individuals, you can choose whichever team you want to score for. As a classroom, you'd have to choose one team. It's not set up to allow for multiple.
Okay. Great. And the sewing workshop, so we've had some feedback in the chat saying that that's a really exciting project, especially coming from a textile teacher, a good way of getting the boys involved. Are there any kind of resource packs, like actual materials that schools can order from you or buy somewhere, or are they free?
So in an ideal world, if we'd had all the budget, we would have ordered a lot more of our sew-on patches so that schools, either we could send them for free or schools could apply to buy them. Unfortunately, budgets didn't stretch that far. If people are really interested, please do drop me a note. I can't 100% promise, but I do still have some patches left, and I'm very happy. Obviously, I don't want anything to go to waste. I'd be happy to send 30 or 60, depending on a cohort, out to kind of almost like a first come, first served, so that people can use these patches in school. We did order 1,000 and we've sent those out via CCO, so the sort of the charitable arm of multiple football clubs. So they are going to activate in schools with these patches. But I do have some left, and I happily share. So yeah, you're welcome to share my email, and people can get in touch on that. What we have for everyone else, acknowledging that we don't obviously have patches to share with everyone, is this video with the footballers learning to sew. I would say now that it's not exactly the video that will give everyone the actual advice on literally how to do the stitches, but I think it's there to provide a bit of inspiration. Like you say, for young boys, I think it might be more inspirational to see some of their sort of, to see footballers, male footballers in this case, having a go at sewing. We've also hopefully got another video coming in from Plymouth with some of their players taking part as well. So as soon as we've got that ready, we'll share. But yeah, hopefully those two videos could be then in school. You could suggest to people that they bring in an old item that maybe has a hole in it, and they could learn to do a couple of stitches using these videos as inspiration. So hopefully it just sort of kickstarts in schools a way for teachers to bring sewing into the classroom in a different way to the way they might have done before. But yeah, do get in touch with patches. Yeah. I'll definitely get them out first come, first served.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I think that's also those videos can be used outside of the project time as well, can't they? It's really great. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question. This was sort of going back to your introduction. How did you get football clubs on board, and kind of was it a hard sell?
Yeah, truthfully, it has been quite hard sell. Not because clubs don't want to do it. I think it's just that clubs are asked to do a lot. They are quite stretched in terms of the football season is packed with different asks of them. It's like, can you support disability campaigns? Can you support campaigns around women's football? Can you support, there's lots of different asks of clubs. And each week they've kind of got different things on their menu of what they're trying to talk to their fans about. So climate was definitely on their agenda, but it was just like when and how can we fit this in? So, you know, it's a bit of a trial and error for us each year. We're working with them more and more, and we're learning about how best to work with clubs and what they need from us and what actually works for their fan bases. But what we do know, and the sort of survey results we've had back, is that, you know, post year one, clubs went, okay, I get it. Our fans do want to hear us talking about, you know, climate issues, be that, you know, the bulbs we've changed in our club, or you know, the plant-based options we have. You know, there was an assumption that fans didn't really want to hear about this, and I think fans assumed that clubs weren't necessarily doing anything. Neither is true, and actually I think green football has provided a bit of a platform where fans can talk about what they want to their clubs and the importance of climate from their perspective, and clubs equally can talk to fans about it. And, you know, I think we provide that platform for them to talk about it. So it's not perfect yet. You know, not every single club in the world sort of jumps in our arms and goes, yes, what can we do? It's, you know, it's sort of, we have to keep sort of working it through. And that's the same for the leagues as well. The leagues are supportive, but they're busy. You know, how can we bring this all on board, etc., etc. But each year, you know, we're sort of chipping away, and it's becoming sort of more of a part of the footballing calendar. So
great. And one final question: how can we see which clubs are involved?
Well, so in terms of from the point of view of scoring goals, you can score goals for any club. So your club doesn't have to be involved for you to score points to them, if that's what they meant. But in terms of if their club is involved, hopefully every club will be doing something on social to talk about it if they're involved. You know, they'll be putting it in match day programs. They'll be, you know, using kind of their comms channels, and a lot of them are putting on greener games during that period. And so, you know, if you're at a game, hopefully you will see something about it be a donation point. I would also encourage people to ask their club, what are you doing for green football? That really helps us out as well. You know, if you think your club should be involved and isn't sort of doing anything massive, please do sort of tweet at them, you know, post them, write them, whatever way. That really helps us out. And I think, again, it just goes to show that if people care about this and they want their club involved, it's a really important sort of two-way street that we can only help to sort of bring to life more.
Yeah, that's a great idea, getting people to contact the clubs and actually ask them outright what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we've had one, sorry, I keep saying final question,
That's
but we've
right.
got 2 minutes. In the Q&A, will Salvation Army be able to coordinate, receive and redistribute whole sets of surplus kit between schools and teams?
So Salvation Army, we went through a whole process of finding, you know, which charity partners was best to work with, and Salvation Army came out on top in terms of how they deal with clothing and how it goes back into the you know, the chain, as it were. So, you know, other charities will take clothes in, but they're not necessarily that good at actually kind of either reselling them on or doing the right thing with them. Some charities still end up in sort of, you know, massive sort of mountain garments in Ghana or something. That does happen. So Salvation Army have a much better sort of protocol and process in place. So they can take clothes through their recycled Michael scheme from schools. I should add and stress, it's non-uniform. They won't take uniform, but anything else that was left over, they can package, and they will resell it through their shops. They won't be able to take it and distribute it specifically within your community to a specific club or you know, group. But obviously a school could potentially think to do that themselves. There might be an easy way, a simple way for a connection to do that. We are looking at how we can also support, you know, individual communities and groups through this work. And I know some clubs are thinking about how they can do that as well. Can they take a kit and pass it straight on to a community grassroots group who might really need it through this campaign? Salvation Army can take your clothing, but they will be taking it through into their shops and distributing it through their channels to resell.
Perfect. Thank you. That's really clear. So I think that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for answering those questions. I will pass back over to Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. And I know Rich is gone now, but that was a really, really brilliant presentation, and it's just such an exciting event, and we will be shouting about it, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for answering all those questions. That was quite a busy Q&A, which is nice to see.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And you know, in terms of the follow-up, yeah, we'll pass information on to you, Suzanne, to share out, and I'll add my email onto that as well. So individuals about patches, or if they've got further questions, please do get in touch. We're really, really happy to answer them. And, you know, thank you in advance for any school who might consider sort of supporting this campaign. I think, like Rich said, really important part of what we're doing. And as much as possible, we'd also love the feedback so we can continue to improve this year on year.
Yeah, brilliant. No, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. Amazing presentation, and thank you for taking your time today to come along. Really excited to see what comes out of it in the next few weeks.
It's been busy times. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you
Take care.
all.